I Zoomed today with my friend Dr. Dorrell Briscoe, and we talked a bit about what the church needs to be doing in order to respond to racism today. And he did his doctoral work on the subject and is converting that to a new book.
Morning, we just finished up a little homeschooling.
All right, cool.
And,
are
so
you having more? Seems like every time I turn around, you've got more kids coming. But
man, we are done.
I guess it's been a while. So
the youngest will be 2 on Sunday.
Awesome.
And so yes, sir. How are your kids?
Great. My youngest is home from college. 2 youngest
Nice.
from college, but I've got a grandbaby now. I've got a granddaughter.
Wow.
Yeah. Our daughter that went to Texas A&M, graduated from Texas A&M. Her and her husband had a baby in October, so it's killing us not to be able to go see them. You know, but
I know. Where are they at? Are they in Dallas?
They're in Houston. They're in Houston. Okay. So we moved to Victoria. Was appointed to a church in Victoria just almost a year ago, last July. And so we're a lot closer. I don't know. I know that you got a master's degree from Texas A&M. Isn't that right?
Yes,
so
sir.
You're somewhat familiar. And didn't you spend some time out in West Texas, like Odessa or somewhere?
No. I spent time in Louisiana.
Oh, okay. I don't know why I was thinking that you had an Odessa connection, but
the senior pastor of the church I was serving at in Florida was from Midland.
Oh, okay.
That's probably what. Yeah, it's them.
Yeah. So anyway, we're about an hour and a half from our new grandbaby.
Yeah.
Hoping to be able to see her here shortly. But
wait, I'm so happy for you guys. That's a blessing.
Thank you. Well, so you guys are making it through at home, doing the homeschooling and
doing the homeschooling. Man, working out. We're doing a little home gym. We're kind of constructing a home gym.
You've got the powerlifting thing going, man.
I got the power. Dude, it's my sanity, man.
Well, I hadn't seen you in a while, other than online and stuff. Knew you were doing that, but then when you popped up at Duke, you came, and of course you graduated. You got your doctoral thesis done like hard at it. And so you graduated before the majority of the rest of us, and you showed up, and you were thick, man.
Bro, it definitely put on some weight, and I competed 3 times at a meet, three different meets in 2019, and it's just been fun, man. It's just been fun to like channel some of that energy towards that, but still work out, still be healthy. So I'm not competing in 2020, obviously, with the virus, and then I just think with 3 competitions last year, I'm like, I'm gonna just enjoy working out, but 2021, hopefully we'll get back into it.
You amaze me. I think you probably amaze everybody that knows you. When I first met you, I think everybody else in our cohort was like, where does this guy get his energy? If you weren't sprinting across campus to play, you were shooting music videos with unsuspecting passengers.
There you go.
And so, and you're learning to do all these other things. I know you. I would see you on Facebook or whatever, learning to play the violin.
Yeah, that unfortunately, that's the sad reality, that some of these things don't last that long. These hobbies, but I will say the powerlifting. I'll be a year in June, and so of doing it, and so that seems to be lasting.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, hey, I wanted us to talk some about your doctoral thesis, the work you did there. I find it so interesting. I'm so happy that you're working on translating it into I don't know if translate's the right terminology, but bringing it into kind of book form so that the rest of us can read it and apply it, because I've in dealing with different racial issues, and I can remember especially back probably around the time when you were, just before you began working on your doctoral thesis. You froze up. I don't know if you can hear me or not.
I can hear you fine. Can you hear me?
Okay, good. I've tried to preach on racial issues, and have failed miserably for basically three reasons. I've either alienated church members who said, I don't need you preaching that to me. I'm not a racist. I don't need you preaching that to me, and alienated them. I've alienated people that have said, you didn't go hard enough on racism. I want you to get harder, really, really punch it hard. And I've had some that have said, alienated some that have said, what, you don't have any business preaching racism. You're a white man. Why would you even approach this subject? Because you know nothing about it. I wouldn't say that they're wrong, but I do know that I hate it. So I love that you tackle this, because
yep.
I need guidance. I need,
yep.
Anyway, I'm sure I may not be
the
one that struggles.
Great. Man, I just can't.
I'm having a hard time hearing you there.
Okay, do you hear me okay now?
I got you now.
Okay. I'm sorry. Can you close the door, please? Thank you. Sorry, one of many coming in. Okay, do you hear me okay now?
Yeah, I can hear you. You're still bouncing around a little bit, but I can hear you better.
Yeah, I mean, dude, that's the sole reason why I wrote it, because I knew that there were good men, good women with good hearts that want to do something. You can't do everything, but you want to do something, and you want to make what's wrong right. And so, the paper is essentially just a tool to help you and your church think through how you can respond better and lead during times of crisis. But to do that, you got to be good at leading before the crisis. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's so, there's so many similarities with this and, the coronavirus, and how things could have changed if we would have mitigated earlier. Mm-hmm. and done certain things at an earlier, getting ahead, as opposed to like frantically trying to figure things out in the midst of it. And so, and what happens with a lot of my white brothers and sisters is that they have a good heart and they want to say something about it, especially when it is turbulent, there's turmoil, unrest in our social political climate. Like, we got to say something about it, and you should, but they haven't been doing the preparation work beforehand to, number one, I think, gain credibility. Mm-hmm. Number two, gain knowledge and insight. And number three, gain and build collaborative relationships and partnerships in the community, where your influence and what you say is backed up with other people that are doing great work in the community and trying to bridge gaps. Mm-hmm. And so, man, yeah, I mean, I just essentially, I'm trying to get the book down, right now, and trying to get this thing under, 125 pages. But essentially, I'm still trying to follow that same model, the 4 R's: realization, readiness, responsiveness, renewal. Mm-hmm. And just my background in government is, I worked in government in Texas, doing work in Beaumont, did some work out in Beaumont, did some work in for the Houston Galveston Area Council. It's a kind of a quasi-governmental authority, regional planning commission out there. When I worked at A&M, and then obviously when I worked for the mayor in Baton Rouge. But the work I did was really based on what happened after Hurricane Katrina. It was this kind of natural disaster. I think you read the paper, but this natural disaster, natural disaster resiliency, mitigation. What can we do? What do practitioners in those fields do before the storm to ensure that their communities' infrastructure is resilient, communication is robust, they've got a plan to respond? And so I'm just like, like you read in the paper, I just saw a lot of similarities between that and racial crises. And again, I make it the distinction in the paper. I'm not talking about white supremacy. I'm not talking about systemic racism per se in that. There's a lot of great books on that to gain. Now, I'm saying is how can we lead through, respond better during times of crises? Which does, I would say, in the readiness phase, require you to learn more about issues and why that wound is so deep and why people get so mad, black and white, and so, yeah.
Well, you do a lot of, in that comparison, and the title of your paper was "A Storm is Coming," or
there's
like
a storm coming, yeah.
And that comparison with Hurricane Katrina and climate change and all of that. So I'm wondering right now, because for a while in the country, it just seemed like every week at least there was some sort of violence. That was
every year, several times a year. Yep.
Yeah, just it was just coming, and maybe because we've been so consumed with COVID-19 here recently, it doesn't seem like that's been out there. So it almost seems like we're kind of in that eye of the storm. That we have this calm feeling, like, hey, that's behind us. It's not a. So is now, I guess, a prime time to really be preparing and thinking about our response, to the next tragedy, or how do we even work as the church to prevent these things?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're right. I think that we are in a time, from 2012, I believe, to 2018, every year there was a major racialized crisis in America. One that led to protesting, rioting, mass protesting, marching. Presidential leadership got involved, governmental leadership got involved. From 2012 to I want to say Charlottesville might have been the last one, 2017. But not sure with 2018. I don't think, and so, so you did have that a lot. And I think right now the tendency is, we're doing okay and we got bigger fish to fry. But no, what we can do right now is we have to ask ourselves and our leadership, our core leadership, what can we do? You got to understand there's a problem. You have to understand that there is an issue. And if there is an issue, what can we do to be ready, get ready for it in a way where if it does happen again, if it happens in our community, we know what to say, we know what to do, we know relationships we've been building to be for our church to be a place of healing, a balm in Gilead, right? Like a place where hope and renewal it happens. I tell pastors all the time, what are you going to do if 1,000 neo-Nazis and Confederate supporters start marching in your town? What are you going to say on Sunday morning? How are you going to lead throughout the week? So I think it's it first starts with and so I'm kind of doing this already in my church, but I'm kind of doing it like intuitively. It's not like I'm going through the cycle, the model, and saying, okay, like we're doing this with readiness and then this responsiveness. But I will say that just going for us, those two things, readiness and realization and readiness, what we're doing is we're taking measures and approaches to learn about what's going on in our community, racism in our community, systemic racism in our community, police brutality. And from the inception of our church, we did something called Readings on Race, where we only read books from authors of color or women. And we read about this and we learn. We do an event called Letter Writing to the Incarcerated, where we screen a documentary on criminal justice reform. And then we write letters to people who are locked up in prison. And I'll share a message that's kind of more justice centered that talks about this issue. So you're getting that theological thought towards things, towards this issue, but then also like a sociological analysis of what's happening. So what are we doing? We're trying to help people become informed. And go figure, in Durham, we had a racialized crisis.
Right.
It wasn't the shooting of an unarmed black man or woman at the hands of police. What it was, to make what's long short, we had folks that were in these public housing complex that had to get evacuated to hotels. Over 500 residents had to get evacuated to hotels because of elevated levels of carbon monoxide. Mm-hmm. 2 babies had died within a month. There was the complex was just in disrepair, and it produced a crisis. I mean, we spent millions of dollars trying to house residents in these hotels. People were mad. A bunch of poor black folks spread out across these hotels because they were in these horrible conditions that the city and the housing authority failed to properly maintain and address. And even in a town like Durham, which is hailed as the most progressive city in the South, like, it was a big deal, and it was frustrating. It was angry, and a lot of people were mad. Well, and a lot of people, it was all over.
I was going to say, I watched on social media, on Facebook, I watched you and your church respond. I saw your wife. I think she spoke to the city council or whatever government thing there. So I commend you guys for preaching outside of the pulpit, as is going through being the church, right, in that way. And I think that's
well. What was beautiful was that it wasn't just me and Tracy. We had several members that came to that city council meeting, that came to subsequent meetings, that showed up to the Durham Housing Authority and handed out donuts and food to residents who were in line trying to get their meal card for the week. We had well over a dozen. We're a small church. We're 60, 70 people. We just started. We started meeting weekly in January. And then literally this crisis happened mid-January. So it was like the first Sunday, and then boom, crisis. Now, granted, we were meeting once a month, twice a month, before then doing some preview services, building relationships in the community. But I think some of that work at the forefront, because even before we were doing weekly stuff, we were doing educational stuff. We were getting in the community. We were loving the local. We were building relationships. And I think that helped us as a church be in a position to respond. And man, through that, we as a church gained a lot of credibility in the community, because we were vocal, but not just vocal, not just speaking out and speaking truth to power. We were backing that speaking out with action, with money, with resources, with manpower. And so, but again, that realization, we realize there's even in Durham, even it's a progressive city, what are the needs? Kind of conduct, like, I think for you in Victoria, you got to, and I think I say this somewhere in the paper. I think it's might be chapter 5 during the readiness section. Oh yeah, there it is. Undertaking a vulnerability assessment. Mm-hmm. What are the vulnerable points in your community? Mm-hmm. Is it affordable housing? That deal was more of a racial element, right? Like, is it mass incarceration? Mm-hmm. Is it affordable housing? Is it food insecurities?
Right. And I guess, and that's one of the struggles. In all honesty, the church that I serve is the downtown tall steeple, almost all white people church. It's that stereotypical Southern Methodist church, and about 4 blocks down the street from us is the historically African American Methodist Church, and I would love to say
AME.
No, it's actually United Methodist.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah. There's also an AME down the road as well. But I would like to see us come together, and you got me thinking here on one of the opportunities for our churches to get together and have discussions and talk about these things, because I think it's really, really easy for white folks, for us to think racism's not that big of a deal out there, because I'm not, I despise racism. The people in my church, they despise it. They don't know people that are overtly racist. They don't know, they would never associate with somebody who was apparently racist anyway. But I've come more to the realization that there is systemic racism. There are things that may not be overtly racist, but are definitely racially charged, or there's a race component that drives wedges and causes us to be blind to it.
That's right.
Like with COVID, for a long time, people were going, "Oh, we don't have it here. That's something in New York. That's something, in the big cities. We're not a big town, so we don't have to worry about it as much." Well, we got just as much of a problem there, with COVID, because we buried our head in the sand for a while.
That's right.
And I think that's what you were getting at too earlier with we got to get ahead of some of these.
And I think you can get ahead of it by fostering these partnerships. Just like you just said, connecting with the other historically Black UMC church, the AME church. What I'm doing right now, even in my community in downtown Durham, I'm connecting and building a partnership with 3 AME churches that are within a mile from our church in downtown. And I approach their pastors. I'm like, I need to learn from you. I'm new in this community. I don't know enough. We're a new faith community. We want to follow your lead. If we want to follow your lead in bringing the kingdom to this area in Durham. And we have partnered with their food pantry and clothing closet. We've done a pulpit swap already. And we're talking, 3-4 months into this relationship. Me relentlessly trying to build this, humble myself, approach them. 2 other AME churches, we're working with them, but we're trying to build this partnership now. We're doing it now, where we can build. My dream is to slowly build this justice centered partnership with first AME churches. And then as we, our church, we're becoming UMC. I don't know if you know that around, right?
We had a conversation a while back. You were talking about that.
Yep.
And I knew,
we are. We are.
We'll
We'll be UMC. Man, I'm happy to be part of the family, man. Y'all finally got me.
That's right.
Man. And so, yeah, man. We're laying those seeds now. So when things happen, we can pull from the resources, the power, the platform of these other churches, and hopefully amplify what we're saying as a church, not just a single body, but a collaborative body of churches. And so what would it look like for you right now to approach the African American UMC church and talk through what would a partnership look like? Maybe you guys are doing more charity like events, which is important, but it's not justice. And I think there are 2 separate things. Charity is different than justice. We need both. I think charity is a bit more palatable to conservative white folk. But in my opinion, but as you break down those barriers, expose them to glaring inequalities that still exist today, perhaps you start to pull on some heartstrings, and they start to see a bigger need, and that's when you can start talking about racism. That's when you can start, and you can have a more receptive audience, because you guys are doing the work, partnering with other churches, breaking down barriers, cultural, ethnic, racial barriers. And so when the time does come to talk about racism, you have far more credibility, far more buy-in, far more influence, because you've been doing the work beforehand.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And so...
And it doesn't have to be. I liked your pulpit swap earlier, but
Yeah.
I gotta tell you, I don't think that would work. I would put the folks to sleep down the road. I have heard Brother Zeddy preach, and
but you know what? If I can, and I know you're being humble, but if I can respectfully push back on that, the fact the problem in this country is that too often the burden is placed on Black Christians across the color line.
Mm-hmm.
It is our job to go to their church, the big church, mega church, whatever church. We will more often go over there than they will go over to us.
Mm-hmm.
That's the truth. So the fact that if you come and you show up and you preach, let me tell you something. I think people. Oh, sorry. Am I here?
Yeah, I see it.
Okay, there I am. I think people will appreciate who you are and your quirks and your style, and the fact that you're willing, though, to come and minister to, love on, connect with a Black church, my friend, that says a lot.
Yeah, well,
that says a lot.
And it is. I've been here not quite a year, but probably about 10 months or so, and have been to 2 services over there. One, they had an anniversary. It was wonderful.
Great.
But my wife and I went that afternoon. We thought, okay, this will be great. We'll go, spend an hour in worship with them. 3.5, 4 hours later, we were still there.
Right. Yep. You better get some Gatorade.
Right.
It is legit, bro.
I mean, it was great. It was a lot of. The energy was so amazing, Dorrell. And so sometimes we think about if we could have joint worship services and do these things, which would be great occasionally, but I guess I've always been leery of the not wanting to swallow up any. I think sometimes, especially in our bigger white churches, we think, kind of like you were saying, let's get this church over here with us and have this joint worship service. But basically, it's, hey, y'all come worship our way.
That's right.
And it's not that that's bad, but I don't want Webster Chapel down the road to lose that identity, to lose any. So working together in the community is a brilliant idea, and something we ought to be doing anyway. Regardless of race, but working together on social justice issues, and if it just so happens that there are, I think inevitably that'll lead to dealing with race issues that are there.
And I think that unity is so powerful. I think it's so biblical. I mean, John 17, Jesus is praying that the disciples would have unity, and if they did that, the world would know that they belong to me. I think that there is something so powerful about the body of Christ coming together and responding to these issues, serving together. I think that amplifies your voice in a way that if you were to do things on your own, wouldn't, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'll be honest, and I'm hoping folks will be watching this and that have some of the same struggles, and one of my honest responses here is sometimes my ignorance is paralyzing. Sometimes I don't say something because I'm afraid I'm going to say it wrong. I'm going to say it out of a place of ignorance because I am a white male that quite frankly doesn't know or understand racism and has not been there. So I do worry that I'm not going to be in today's terms. I'm not going to be woke enough, and say something dumb. So it's almost like I need permission to be an idiot, a good-hearted idiot. With eyes open enough.
That's right.
Realize when somebody points that out that they have a point. But still, it's paralyzing.
It's paralyzing. It's hard. It what you just said is what I've heard time and time again. I mean, it's tough because you get that criticism and you're like, man, I'm trying here. But they'll throw it in your face. You can't make people happy. White folks are mad. Black folks are mad. No one's happy. I mean, I get it. I've seen it and I get it because I've served in a white church for 10 years, large evangelical conservative white church. I have seen it up front and personal. I will say that having relationships with other, yes, baby, you can go on a walk. Go with mommy.
But mama said no.
Okay, I'll talk to her. I'm on the phone. Okay, baby, I'm sorry. My three-year-old daughter. Poor thing, she's trying to get out of the house. But I will say if you can start forming relationships, not just from an ecclesiastical standpoint, but from a knowledge-based standpoint, how can I learn from you? Hey, I'm thinking about saying this to my congregation. What do you think? Having some type of relationship where you are being mentored, counseled, and encouraged in, right? Encouraged, right? I mean, that is critical, I think. And I have had several white friends that are pastors come to me and say, I'm thinking about saying A. What do you think? Mm-hmm. And I can give my honest opinion. I care about them. And so I'm going to give my honest opinion, but I'm also going to cover what I say with grace and everything, and thank them for even wanting to tackle this issue. And so you need some allies there, I think, to help you, educate you, not only on the systemic inequality stats, but also in Black folks' lived experience. Right? Like we have a vantage point on this stuff because we are the recipients of this stuff. Mm-hmm. I'm just, I don't know if I told you, I'm pursuing a PhD right now, in focusing on the history of the American South. Uh-huh. And so which is my first love. That was my, I almost did not go the government route. I was this close from getting a PhD at Ole Miss in Southern Studies, because that's literally my passion. We lived in Mississippi, and I just fell in love with Southern culture and history. I mean, I'm reading a book right now that just came out called How the South Won the Civil War by Heather Cox Richardson. Great read on the history and how the South's Southern ideology prevailed, and continues to play out in America today. But even as I'm reading that, I'm learning new stuff. I'm like, oh my God, I didn't even know that. So it's a combination of self-education, but it's also the lived experience. So as a white man, yes, you can read a book and you can lament and you can learn and you can, grow in your knowledge of our history and how history affects today. But I also believe that immersing yourself, being incarnational in the vantage point and context of Black folk is critical as well to informing you and your leadership and your response during these times of crisis. You know, and I think that's very critical. And so, yeah.
Oh, gosh, you know, I so much appreciate you taking the time to visit with me. I wish we had a little bit more time. I'm not. I'm too cheap to spend the money to go over 40 minutes on Zoom.
Dude, I just got the business account. I was like, this is costing too much money.
But no, you need to go on a walk with your child there anyway. So,
they are crawling in here. There's 2 of them in here right now, and I'm like, I put it on mute. I'm like, Tracy, get these kids.
Well, I appreciate it so much, and you know, we just kind of scratched the surface.
Scratch the surface.
But I hope that we can maybe even continue this conversation down the road a little bit, especially once we're able to be around each other more.
Yes.
Really foster some great conversations between churches, between folks, and mentor. You know, I'm craving what you're selling there.
Wow.
I'm looking forward to the book. I'm looking, and I've got the nuts and bolts of it, which is certainly more than 125 pages.
Yep.
So yeah, I would love.
I got it down to 213 so far, and so I'm slowly dropping.
Good. But no, I'm looking forward to that, and want to continue this conversation with you down the road. But God bless you. Stay safe, my little family, and we'll talk to you soon.
Appreciate you, sir. Appreciate the encouragement. I'll see you soon.
All right. Bye, Dorrell.
Bye.